voters and use provisional ballots, which you can cancel later on. Step 2, verification, that is, harass people as they verify their ability to vote. Step 3, new ID laws, which make it difficult for people who either can't afford or have access to IDs to have to show up with an ID. Step 4, spoiling ballots. Again, this sounds very familiar. Step 5, and this is relevant to you, rejecting mail-in ballots. And then finally, the exit poll and similar stratagems. Now, walk us through what your party is going to be doing as the voting starts in the east and moves towards the west. There is an agreement among the major networks that they won't be revealing the results of the various states until all the polls close, precisely to avoid trending. Now, how, on the other hand, will your party be working to find out where you have to suddenly make a big push and where you can relax?
Well, we're not taking anything for granted, and I don't think we're relaxing anywhere. We're going to have staff on the ground in every polling district. There are 200,000 places in America where people can cast their vote. And the Obama campaign will have people in every one of those polling places to make sure that people are not disenfranchised, like we saw 8 years ago. This is an unprecedented ground campaign you've seen by the Obama team this time. This was one area where the Republicans have generally been stronger than Democrats in the past.
And getting the vote out.
Getting the vote out. And we've turned it on its head this year with new technology, with the younger vote, but also with a new population, African Americans, Hispanic Americans, and even more young Filipino Americans. I know you spoke earlier about the older generation of the Philippines still trending Republican, but we've had a lot of active young Filipino Americans really helping to get out the vote, especially in Nevada. We've had busloads and busloads of young Filipino Americans traveling from California into Nevada to knock on doors and help get people registered to vote and out to vote.
All right, we have a message here from John through text. You were talking about early voting earlier, so what would be needed to be in place before the Philippines allows early voting? I think Manolo, you should be answering that.
Well, I don't know. We'd have to have a proper voter's ID, I think, to begin with, and a way of safeguarding those ballots. I mean, what's different in the way the United States, correct me if I'm wrong, does their things is each state is basically in control down to printing the ballots. I mean, you don't have ballots printed in Washington and sent to every little town, while ours is very nationally centered that way. And there is perhaps a greater trust in the system that, you know, you can be sure that when you hand in your vote, it's going to sit there and not undergo any magic until it's time to count them.
I have a question, though. I mean, the way we're talking about this, it seems like the Republicans are the only ones cheating. Is it because we don't have a Republican representative here, or is it because it's always the Democrats who really are?
Well, to be fair, and just if you talk to the Republicans, of course, their main obsession has always been what they call the ward politics of the Democrats, because they're strong in many traditionally poor areas, that they had these ward leaders. Up to now, there are many Republicans who will tell you that the Daily Machine in Chicago stole the election for John F. Kennedy. And so it goes both sides. It's not only here that every side is accusing the other. But tell me of the bipartisan ways that your party and the other side have actually come together, if any, to actually improve the way the votes are handled.
Well, I think you are seeing this year in 2008 versus 4 years ago even, that the federal government at an administrative level, not at a political level, has been more proactive in working with individual states to make sure they have better voting safeguards in place. This year you have many more states that have paper ballots where there's electronic voting. They have paper receipts, so that if someone casts their votes, they have a receipt to verify who they voted for. So it makes it much harder to commit fraud by computer tampering, for instance. And you have a whole administrative body now in Washington, D.C. that's working with states. It's far from perfect, and we have a long way to go to really.
But that's an interesting point, because we're looking at computerizing our elections. But so what you're telling me is the trend in the United States is to include a paper trail with the computerized voting.
Almost every political expert you speak with still thinks that paper trails work the best. It gives you a little extra guarantee. When things are purely electronic, it's too easy to submit them to manipulation of some sort.
Do you have any more questions, Pat?
I think we do have a question over here.
It's very interesting that most Filipinos are very interested in the results of the U.S. elections. And I have reason to believe that it's not just because we are merely curious or interested of who's going to win, the Republicans or the Democrats, but because it's basically because our economy is highly dependent on the U.S. economies, and the U.S. economy. So, at the end of the day, our question will be, what will be the impact of whoever will win in the Philippines? So to say, parang it's to ask, if Republicans win, what will happen, and if the Democrats win, what will happen in the U.S.-RP relations?
In other words, why should we care?
Well, I think you've seen over the past 6 months exactly why you should care. After 8 years of George Bush's economics, the world is in a tailspin economically. We need adult leadership in Washington to get the world economy back on track. And unfortunately, what happens in America still affects the rest of the world economically. So we really believe that if we can get America's economy back on track, stop spending money we don't have, and really investing in the future of the states, it'll be good for the world, good for the Philippines.
Let me give you a question that many Filipinos have been asking because of what Barack Obama has been saying, which is he wants to bring back jobs to the United States, and it has Filipinos, particularly those in our BPO industries, freaked out that they might be losing their jobs.
Yes, but to tell you the truth, what Barack Obama has been speaking about isn't going to affect those types of industries at all. He's really been talking about investment in infrastructure, new energy, cutting-edge technology industries, green technologies, clean coal, and these types of things. America has lost its industrial base, and he does want to bring those jobs back. But really, at the end of the day, a strong American economy will inevitably be good for the Philippines as well. When we compete against one another in a non-constructive way, everybody loses. And when we work together to create more wealth, everybody wins.
Okay, final question. What time do you think we'll know the results?
I'm hoping by high noon, because I'm going to have champagne on ice and my thumbs are going to be itching to pop a cork.
Okay, so my view. Now, whatever the outcome, let me briefly point out two things. The first is that American policy towards the Philippines, which has been pretty low on the American strategic totem pole since the base has closed in the 1990s, probably won't change very much. The second is that the Filipino-American vote seems among the most inconsequential, both state-wise and nationally, among America's minorities. At best, it seems a pale brown copy of however conservative American whites vote, encompassing many of the same aspirations and many of the same fears. The first is a painful reality for many Filipinos used to having a special place in American policy and politics. The second, a reality less relevant to us here at home, but surely something to mull over for Filipinos who have become U.S. citizens, including many viewers of this program. And perhaps let me add one naughty observation I've increasingly been hearing from balikbayans and people here at home alike. Isn't it funny, they cheekily ask, that American politics is increasingly resembling Filipino politics? Thank you, Mr. Rush. Thanks also to Pat Evangelista and the members of Saligan. I'm Manolo, Quezon, and this is The Explainer.